Now, our next guest comes all the way from north of the border in Scotland. It is Chief Moody. Now, this is going to be the oddest interview ever because it's going to be a sober Scotsman on New Year's. How sober are you, Chief?
Well, I'll be honest, right? I've had like maybe 3 or 4 bottles worth of Copperberg, so I wouldn't say like I'm not like completely drunk or anything. I may be tipsy. I'll say that. So I'm not completely drunk. So I'm not gonna be belligerent or anything like that at all. I'm completely okay. So
You're completely okay, but you are mildly tipsy. Well, that's good to know. So, being mildly tipsy and being a Scotsman, what would you say were the highlights of 2025 for the nationalist cause?
highlights of the year. I would say probably the biggest highlight for me would be the protests going on all across the country. Um, it's good to see that a lot of people, even just like regular normal folk who are not exactly political necessarily, but who are just completely fed up with the system and just like, you know what, like enough's enough. Like we're just sick to the back teeth of it essentially. And they're going out and they're protesting, they're showcasing that look, we're fed up with the whole thing and we're done with it. So, and it's really gaining a lot of traction this past year, and hopefully it will continue on for the next year or so. It's also quite funny to see a lot of the lefties, the anti-white types, again, whatever you want to call them, just like completely just like just like, oh, I can't believe this is all happening. Like, what is going on? The people should be like accepting this. This is multicultural and all of that. But no, like, I think to me anyway, that's definitely been the highlight. It's good to see that a lot of the protests are happening, and even a lot of people that are coming over to our side of things are now using our own talking points, whether it's to do with like say demographic change or even just like talking about say like anti-white this and anti-white that. The Overton window is clearly shifting in our direction, and I definitely am happy with that. Maybe certain people might not be, but you know what? Those people, I wouldn't really care much less when it comes to it, but I'm happy nonetheless regarding to that.
Well, let's say it's gone a bit further than sort of an Overton shift, because the Overton shift sort of the idea that what is acceptable to talk about changes over time. Now, what you pointed out with the demonstrations, that's a step beyond, because people aren't just talking now. Normal people are out committing themselves to the kind of activism that used to just be nationalist activism. So at one point, we would say sort of a hotel protest would be sort of the BNP, the National Front, a protest arranged by somebody like Steve Laws or Patriotic Alternative. But instead, many of these anti-migrant hotel protests are now being arranged by normal people. They're very organic. They're taking place at grassroots level, and they're also spontaneous. So you will see that somebody will say, I've had enough. I'm going down to the hotel tonight. Who wants to join me? And the next thing you'll know, there'll be 150, 200 people outside of a hotel in a random town or city. And this actually has nothing to do with a political party or a movement or an organization. It is just the organic nature. So I would say that the Overton window shift has been remarkable in itself, but to turn people from, what can I say, couch commentators into actual activists willing to go out, I would say that's been a big thing and a big positive. And I've got to agree with you there. And there's some great work going up in Scotland. You're the PA organizer for Scotland. If you're in Scotland, get in touch. You can see that your guys are out, most weekends. You've had some brilliant protests up there. You led the protest up in Glasgow, which was meant to be a UKIP protest, and we sort of hijacked that and had a big PA banner at the front because they forgot theirs. That was fantastic. But putting aside the highs of the year, what would you say would be the lows? What for you was sort of like things that went on in 2005 that you thought, well, this isn't quite what we want to see?
I mean, if I had to pick one, I would probably say digital ID, which I know it's been brought up on the show already, but I think for me, that's definitely a very worrying thing because digital ID, the whole point, even if, again, if you're someone who's not really politically active or anything like that at all, the whole point of it really is just control, essentially. It's basically just to try and control the masses, control the general public, control them just to do whatever they on whatever they want, essentially. And I would imagine it would be very very bad for us nationalists because it's all to do with control of like where you travel to, your banking, and all of that. And it's very worrying, definitely. I mean, I know it's supposed to be like a negative, but if there's anything good to come out of the whole digital ID, many people, including leftists themselves, are all completely against it, which is good to see because I can't imagine anybody within this country that looks at digital ID and is like, yeah, I definitely want that for the country. It's like me. You realize it's not just going to completely just control certain groups of people, it's going to control everybody. So it's good to see that many people are completely against it. Oh, if there's another thing to mention in terms of the negatives, I know that that one was relatively short. As good as the protests are that's happened in this country, it's still kind of annoying to see a lot of the CivNet types trying to, gatekeep and like, oh no, don't go this direction with nationalism. No, go to our general direction and all. And of course, another thing with them is that they're trying to do the whole rebranding, as it were. Instead of civic nationalism, now they're going for the whole, oh, we're the Christian nationalists, quote unquote. It's like you're not. It's all just a complete LARP, essentially. But yeah, it's just again another way to try and gatekeep the general public, to try and keep them from a certain, like, oh, just don't go to that nationalism, even though that's like the most accurate, the most truthful form of nationalism, which would be ethno nationalism. Don't go there. Instead, go to our form of nationalism, which is essentially just a very milk toast, very liberal version of nationalism, and yeah, just go here, and then not bother go to that direction, which is just it's just really frustrating. But that says when it comes to that in that case. So
Yeah, I've got to agree with that. The CivNat gatekeepers have been very much in overdrive, and it is quite annoying. So I'll agree with you there. One thing I will say though, when you talk about digital ID, I think another aspect of the digital ID, which sort of really I saw coming a mile off, was this idea that we were going to have a situation where people were going to be driving these electric cars, and those with electric cars weren't going to be paying tax, and it was going to be like this wonderful situation where people were driving around these new cars, and no one was going to be, as I said, no one's going to be paying tax on any of them, and everyone was going to be living in this wonderful world if only they just bought these electric cars. Now all of a sudden the government are saying, look, we're taxing electric cars per mile. On top of taxing the electric cars per mile, they are now talking about ways to do this, and the most obvious way, unfortunately, of taxing cars per mile is, of course, to ensure that the cars are fitted with some kind of tracking device. And I sort of see all of these things not as individual assaults upon us, but as part of a bigger plan. And that big plan is sort of an all-seeing surveillance state that monitors everything we do, not just what we post on social media, not just where we spend our money, but unfortunately where we travel. Where have you been this week, Mr. Collett? Well, I don't really want to tell you, officer. Well, we're just going to seize your car under these new laws, and the electric car tracking device will tell us everything we need to know. Now, at that point, you're in a situation where what can you actually do? There's not really much, is there? You're sort of trapped in at every level. But yeah, digital ID, I think that's going to be something people talk about a lot tonight. But the next thing I want to throw to you is it is coming up, obviously, on 2026. And as a Scotsman, I should imagine you won't be standing in about an hour and a half, which is all well and good. But before you are rolling around on your back, being sick, please do tell us what you think is going to happen next year.
for next year in 2026, Man, I mean, for me, maybe this might be a bit of a cop-out answer because ultimately speaking, I don't know. I mean, anything can happen, not just for 2026, but any year for that matter. But if I have a prediction for the following year or 2026, I would probably say the more people will come along our way. More people will definitely see the gatekeeping aspect of civic nationalism and realize, you know what, they're not exactly who they are. I'm just going to listen to people like Patriotic Alternative or like the British Democrats, all these other uh, actual nationalist groups and causes or whatever, and actually might go on to that side actually. Uh, and yeah, I think it probably might be a good year next year for 26, but again, ultimately speaking, I really just don't know, and I don't really want to say too much about it, considering anything can happen. I mean, there's already talks about I might have seen this earlier this month actually, this whole idea of we might be going to war with Russia and all of that. You know, Russia this and Russia that. You know, Russia are like the worst people imaginable on earth, and it's just like for years you've been telling the general public, especially young white men, that they're the cancer of society, they're the absolute worst of the worst. You know, they cause the problems in our society. And now because of this potential war with Russia, now you want them to go and fight for your Zionist proxy wars. Nah, mate, I'm not in favor of that. So, but saying that, I do think there's definitely a lot of positives when it comes to the nationalist cause. I do hope that more and more people do come along to our side and, yeah, just see the light essentially in that case. So
I agree. I think that's one of the interesting things is the British press have repeatedly talked up this idea of a hot war with Russia. You know, I can't remember who it was, but one of these sort of leading military experts or leading figures in the military actually came out and said, you know, be prepared for your sons and daughters to die in a war with Russia. You know, that this is where we are going. And I think it's incredible that people are talking in this kind of way. You know, it's been a long time since anyone has gone on British TV and said, look, there is going to be a war and it's likely going to be something where, you know, conscription, because once they start saying, be prepared for your sons and daughters to die, that goes from being a professional army chosen via the choice of opting in to being some kind of horrific a conscription method where everybody, you know, people are called up and expected to fight. And I do think it's a very, very telling of the times that we're living in, that you have this being regularly reported on in the media. What's more, I think the state of British armed forces, I don't think they would fare well in a war with any country, let alone sort of Russia or China. So very, very worrying indeed. So do you have any final thoughts before you disappear and enjoy the rest of your New Year's?
no, really, just to say, like, it's been a great year, 2025. I've enjoyed the camp this year. I've enjoyed the conference this year. The only thing with the conference, I wish I did spoke to a lot of the special guests like Jared Taylor, because it's kind of funny because I was looking back on it because it was Euro was talking to him and I was just kind of like inching my way to try and maybe like make my presence known type of thing, but I never said anything. But but other than that, I really enjoyed the conference. I hope the next camp and the next conference will be even bigger and better than this year's conference. And just to say, really, just again, thank you for everything you do, Mark, uh, and everything in the nationalist sphere is also doing as well in terms of everybody. And yeah, just thank you all for your time, and hope to see you all in 2026.
Well, look, thank you for all the hard work you put in. Thanks for being our PA regional organizer. I'm sorry to hear that you sort of stood around and didn't introduce yourself to some of the people at the conference. Most of them like having people come up to them, but I'm still pleased you enjoyed it. But look, you have a great night. I'm going to do a few super chats now before I bring on the next guest because I've got a big stack stacking up. But thanks so much for being here, Chief. I'm going to do the super chat. You have a great new year, and I'll see you on the other side. Thank you, my friend, and keep up the great work.